let's just feel the difference between belly and heart. And when we're meditating like this, the emphasis is on the quiet stillness which settles here in the belly, in the dantian. So we're not really doing anything. We're just trying to quieten down. And then we just want to feel the spark that brings the hands up into prayer. It's like something in the heart leaps and the hands come up. So now it's an order of magnitude higher. The activity is like I'm attentive, I'm listening, I'm expectant. And then just let the hands down again. And then again, something happens in the heart. Down again. So what we want to feel is this flow up just under the collarbones and then down the arms and into the hands. So in the same way that the blood comes down the aorta from the heart and then splits at the dantian into the two legs, there's a sense that the energy coming up splits at the heart into the two arms. So the legs belong to the belly and the arms belong to the heart. So there's a spark in the heart that lifts my hands. And then I can just expand out from that and into the arms. So feel it where it splits, so this region, and it travels across underneath the collarbone, so the soft bit underneath the collarbone, down the inside of the arms, or the tender part, down into the hands, and then the hands can gravitate towards each other. So that thing that John used to be quite strict about, which was the elbows staying out when we're in this position, I think it just had a lot to do with just this feeling that your heart is going to explode. So, he used to say that, meditation is important, but most martial artists would only meditate a little bit because it tends to make you slow and sleepy. And so we want to make sure that it doesn't do that, that it keeps us active and a sense of wanting to burst out of yourself. So this spark in the heart that brings the hands up into prayer it's a bit like that. It's like something here just opens. So the back has to strengthen to get this to spread. And that brings the hands up into prayer. And then if I just keep it expanding, then it will just want to balloon out like this. So there's a sense that your belly, your dantian here is pulling into itself, and it's that that brings the hands together. But the heart is expanding outwards all the time. So it's like, when we stand, it's the tree containing the animal, the dantian containing a bursting heart. Okay, so now let's just try the neck. Just reaching up. And down. And then up and out. Try and keep the hands stretching away from each other and turning the head. And then the hands behind, clasping, straightening the arms, pulling the shoulder blades right back, and just turning the head in a circle. Changing direction. And then wind it down. And then just straightening the arms again. And we'll just lean forwards from here. So leaning forwards and then trying to get the arms straight up behind you. Then up. Again. Up. One more. And up. And then the hands round to prayer. And now reaching one hand at a time, intending the hand up. reaching forwards. Feel all your movements resisted. You're pushing against something and then you're pulling against something. And to the side. And then the strong twist. So one hand behind, other hand on the knee. So each time you breathe out, you can relax a bit and then pull yourself around. So it never feels relaxed because it's stretched. So the muscles are tight. This is the sort of tension we want, a stretched tightness rather than a rigid, contracted tightness. Then slowly release out of it. And the other side. Slowly release. Okay. Now let's just try a few with the stick if you've got one there. So first behind the back, just using it to straighten the back. It looks good. So this feeling that the pressure that we're putting on the back is causing the thymus to want to almost burst out of the chest, out and up. So as adults, we become duty bound. So we do things not because we want to do them, but because we have to. So there's a sense that the action has been imposed from outside. It's like an idea. So what we want in touch is to just make sure that whatever we do comes really from deep inside. So it's almost like a passion that's bubbling to burst out of you. Like a child, when you see a child playing, it's just coming from inside the child. It's not an idea that they've imposed upon themselves. So when we start an exercise, it starts off as a technique, as an idea. So you're imposing this repetitive routine upon your body. But at some point, quite quickly, it should start to just generate a bit of spirit, and then that will just change it. It'll suddenly become interesting and of a completely different order, different species. Okay, now bringing the stick up behind the neck. And just a few turning. Remember, when we turn, we lose the room, we lose the objects, the stationary objects. We become infused with movement. And then just a few tippings to the side. So feel the stick full and empty. Something heavy is rolling down the stick and something light is traveling up it. And then extending the stick above the head, and just a few more of that. Just be careful because it puts a lot more strain on the back. And then letting the stick down behind and then back up and over the top. And then keep pulling and pushing, so clasping the stick in the middle. So keeping the elbows up, it's as though the elbows are trying to pull apart. That's stretching the stick in the middle a little bit. So a loose grip, just tight enough to make sure the hands don't slip. But just imagine the stick is a strip of elastic. So you've stretched the elastic a little bit and you've reached that point of equilibrium where the pulling that you're applying is equal to the pulling of the elastic. So a dynamic equilibrium, there's forces in both directions and they're balanced. So you haven't locked. And then reversing it, so now pushing the hands towards each other. But the dynamic equilibrium, it requires an attentive mind, it requires mindfulness. If your mind drifts, starts thinking to itself, then you've frozen basically. And then pulling again. Ooh. And pushing. Okay, then pulling the stick down. now let's try rubbing the hands. And just rubbing the knees. As it becomes more active, more sort of generated from inside, then it will want to become single weighted, so it will want to alternate. So we just feel that sort of tussle between the idea and the actuality. Then breathing. So just imagine you've got a strip of elastic, the same elastic you'd use to hold your trousers up, and you just stretch it, you just pull, and it reaches a point of equilibrium of where the pull that you're exerting is equal to the pull of the elastic. And you just keep it there without freezing. So that's the equilibrium that we want. And the mind just has to be so attentive because the tendency to freeze is almost overwhelming. And then we just play with it. So now it says, oh, I'm squeezing a ball, a rubber ball. And at some point, the ball throws me back, and now I'm stretching the elastic. And the elastic pulls me back. So it's like a conflict between creativity and conformity. So the creative spark is just spirit. So we have a form, but it's a form that very much contains spirit. It's not just an empty form. And then just rubbing the hand again. And the hands on the sacrum. So over each sacroiliac. To feel the flow of gravity down the spine. And then it needs to split at the sacrum to go down each leg. And to get that split, something in my mind has to sort of relax, not just relax, but sort of open. So suddenly the one becomes two, and each of the two is different from each other. So there's this new set of problems managing the two. And then just let the hands pull across and round. And now just figure of eighting into the Danshan. So feel the hand. So the middle finger is the central axis, if you like, of the hand. So the hand pronates, supinates, pronates, supinates. So feel the domination of the middle finger. That's like your still center. And use the bottom of the figure of eight to scoop into the groin in order to get the feeling that you're hollowing it out. Again, we want to just repeat until the movement is coming from inside. So we have to let the figure of eight take over, especially into the shoulders, because I want it to come down. I want to feel that this action that I'm doing here is coming from the belly. It's not just going into the belly, it's coming from there. So something has to be happening. It's almost like I'm wriggling on my cushion in order to get this alternating action actually in the danshan itself. And then just bring it up into the heart. And now the bottom of the figure eight is scooping into your armpits. So we want the shoulders to become active, but not hunch. And remember, high shoulders just indicates that your head is controlling your hands and your arms rather than your heart. So a sense that something is coming up and out into the arm, but the shoulders, arms up like this. That's difficult. And then bring it up into the head. And now the bottom of the figure of eight, it feels like it's rolling around your jaw, either side of your jaw, close to the ears. So the top of the figure of eight is expanding the dome of the head. And the bottom of the figure of eight is expanding the smile of the jaw. This is the feeling. Okay, good. And now let's just rub the hands again. And then the hands on the back of the head. So this point is symmetrical with the sacrum. It's like you have a triangular bone pointing upwards at the top of your spine that's inserting into the skull. So the occiput region. And I have to get that feeling that the energy that's rising up my spine splits into either side of the skull. So just get a little bit of action in the hands just to help the two sides of the skull to be a little bit mobile against each other. So we have one skull, but we really want to feel there's two sides to it. Those two sides can play. So the energy that comes up the spine and then splits here, it's in the brain really. So at the brain stem. It sort of extends upwards into what John called the horns. So there's a sense that something is coming up here and out. So now let's just use that technique we had of just teasing the energy. It's like you're sort of extending the two sides of the skull from this point where the spine comes into the brain. So you need a good imagination in this game. And then if you work with it, remember that phrase of Leong's that John used to hate, imagination becomes reality. And then just reaching up. And then just reaching, pulling down. And now a little for the peripheral vision. Just sort of fixing the eyes. A real sense that you're sort of sucking in with your eyes rather than glaring out. So we just want to encourage the energy from the behind and the sides to feel like it's coming around. So a hollowness in the front. And then just let the hands drift out and trace the very edge of your vision. And then let it come into the point between the eyes. And then just form prayer, but close to the head so that the vision is split. So the left can't see to the right and vice versa. And then bring it down. And then another one. So, so this head point, and then down, tip of the tongue, the roof of the mouth, point of the chin, throat, Adam's apple, thymus, deep heart, rolling the hands, solar plexus, navel, dantian, down to the perineum. Always a little bit of tightness in the perineum. And now let's try plucking the thread from the top of the head. So one hand out. So even when you lose the hand with your vision, you can still see it in your mind's eye. Ooh, and then it's getting close to the bone. And then you pluck. So you're pulling a nerve out of the spine. Ah, the hands together, but wanting to swell out. So you sort of just grip with the fingers a little bit of the hand that's underneath, and that sort of holds on to the hand on top. And then you can really get a sense of there being a constant pressure away and out. Okay, so let's try stretching the legs. and a bit in the butterfly. Imagination becomes reality. So we need to be able to imagine how it would feel to actually do these things correctly or better. Yes, if my legs were down, if my knees were touching the floor, but how would it feel? I'd just have just a much stronger foundation from out of which I could rise. So I taught a group of teenagers last week, and once they got over the giggling, they were really good. We just did this for a while. One of the girls, her legs were just completely flat on the floor, and it just looked amazing. Okay, so let's kneel now. Cramp. Okay, so let's go down into the fetus. then up. Feet are part of it. Then reaching up and down into the fetus again. Up. And then just a loose fist and rubbing into the armpit. Just be gentle. Then the other side. Then the other side, but now pinching around the rim of the armpit. So just very gently, just massaging the flesh and the muscles, and then the inside of the upper arm, then round the back. The other side. And then just lying down. Pulling the knees up and out. So feel those points in the groin, so the leg pits. And then bring the hands down to the feet and pull them up like you're trying to do the butterfly lying down. Again, I'll get the groin just a little bit more open. You can use your elbows to push the legs out. And then just bring the legs down. You can keep the feet together. Again, like you're doing the butterfly. And now just rubbing into those glands in the groin. Feel the tendon of the adductor muscle, that ridge of tendon. So behind that a little bit, and then the inside of it, and a sense that you can get your fingers underneath it. Same way that we can sort of get the fingers underneath the collarbone. So all the way up to the top of the hip bone. And then just cycling, but with a view of opening those leg pits even more. It's round into the squat. Again, with the mind in those points in the groin. Just imagine if you want to get those points more open, just feel how open the sacroiliacs need to get. Okay, let's just start by moving leg to leg, full and empty. Feeling the leg filling, compressing, and the leg emptying, stretching, expanding. And we want to feel the return. It's the return that's always important. It's not the action itself, it's when it changes from one to the other. So the full at the point of it starting to empty. So filling, it compresses, and then it bounces out. I sink into the leg and it bounces me back. I want to feel the energy. I want to feel the movement before it's happened. That's basically energy. Energy is just what causes the movement. So it's there before the movement. So as I sink into this leg, it's compressing, it's storing energy, but it's also returning, trying to push back. So everything's these dynamic equilibrium systems. So nothing stops, nothing freezes. Everything's always fluid. So I'm sinking this way. Something must be coming up because I'm not really moving. just cast your mind back to the last time you were on a trampoline. Yeah, so you just feel the up before your body's actually gone. And that's the feeling of the energy that's rising up from the ground, surging up through my body. Whee. And then I get taken by it. You can see what happens is you come up, you sink into the leg, and then you bounce upwards. So the emphasis of this bounding energy is up. You're leaving the ground all the time. And now just bring the mind to the emptying leg, so the leg empties, 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 empties. But at some point, if I want the movement to just continue, it needs to start bending. So this is the empty side. Straightening, followed by bending. And when I concentrate on the empty leg, then it will tend to keep me down, which is why we tend to prefer it. I mean, they're both there all the time. Because there's one, as the empty leg is pulling, the full leg is pushing. And then just feel the heel. So you sink into the filling heel so that the other heel can lift up. And that is the knee. It's the knee of the empty leg becomes active, which bends the leg and lifts the heel. And opens these pockets in the groin. So to really feel the activity, the energy leading the body. So my body is slow and sluggish, doesn't really want to move. So you want to stay in the full leg. And then feel the turning. So when you pull with the leg, it'll want you to turn towards it. When you push with the leg, you'll want to turn away from the leg you're pushing with. And then just turning. Again, from the same action of the legs. So this leg is straightening and then it's bending. This leg is straightening, bending. I'll try my best just to turn around the spine without the spine moving side to side too much. So we just want to get it again, get it coming from inside. So there's some real sort of spirited activity that's bursting to get out. So if we only ever did what we meant to do, then we'd never learn anything. It would never develop. So we impose a structure and then just repeat until it sort of takes on a life of its own. And then that generates new material. You notice things that you've never noticed before. What Nietzsche said, wasn't it? The body is far wiser than the mind. Yeah, so when we do it like this, it's like the first warm-up exercise. So the hands are just with the momentum, they get thrown around the body. Now, if instead I let my hands be with the legs, then this hand is with this leg straightening and then pulling this hand like this. So the hands become sort of opposite. Sense now that my back hand is reaching behind me rather than wrapping around in front. So my hands are now with the motor that's generating the energy rather than with the energy. Good. And now let's just bring it into riding force. Feel the energy flowing down the spine. And then something in you has to open to allow it to split across the sacrum into each hip and down the legs and into the ground through the heels. Feel the openness in the armpit that we worked on with the fist, and also in the front here, just beneath the collarbone. And then the same here. So these ones here, we just want to really feel like they're hollow, like they're sucking in, which gives a sense that your bum is sticking out a little bit, like your tail is trying to go out behind you. And now let's come off the heels and onto the front of the foot. So just lifting the heels. Feel how as you lift the heels, it also lifts your root up. So it's like your tail comes out of the ground. Your tail can now wiggle around behind you. And now you're the animal. The frequency has risen. And now the desire now is to fall forward or move around. And then let's put the heels down one at a time. So you get, as soon as it hits the ground, there's a sense that it gets sucked into the ground. And then this one. And then just repeating, sucked into the ground. So it's the figure of 8 around the waist or around the feet. A real sense that it's come out of the sacroiliac, drooped down, cut under the ground, and then come back up the inside of the leg. And then just back into riding horse. Feel the heels. Now they're both sucking you right there. That's getting you to lean back a little. And that allows the heart to reach up. And then off the heels again. And now heels down again. So the other heel down first. And then this one. Then let's just go into the 2-circle exercise. Feel the weight. And then feel the energy. So the weight is in one side, the energy expresses in the other. So the weight is in the leg, obviously. The energy is in the opposite hand. Now just try and make sure you get into the heel of the full leg. And then 1 foot forwards. So now pulling the leg. Yeah, make sure you get into the heel. When you hit the heel, there's a real sense that it is going right down into the ground. It's a mind that's always extending. And then the other foot forwards. Feel the active knees. This knee is trying to roll out and back behind. And then this knee is trying to roll out here. So this area is getting stretched all the time by the active knees. So this feeling that the thigh is trying to roll like this all the time because my knee is trying to go out there. So this is rolling, and you can feel it. When this rolls like that, it sort of pulls your bum in here and allows this to lift. So, okay. So now let's try this one. So single weighted, the two sides of the body doing opposite things. And then a little bit wider, but the same thing. And now with this real feeling that you're scooping into your own groin. So And then a little bit wider still, same thing. And now bring the arms up, so under the armpits. And then bring them in again. And now the head and the jaw. And then just the slow jog. And then rolling the shoulders. This is real, full and empty. I feel one side, it allows the other side to loosen and reach up. And the other way. Okay. And now let's step, sinking into one leg and feeling the leg like a lasso. I send the leg out and I catch something and pull myself into the foot. And then the other leg pulls me back. I'm throwing out this lasso of energy and catching the ground. Ooh. There's the stepping stones. Imagine this stone. I send my mind out. So first my mind needs to lead my body. It's just, holding the ball. So the hand that's gone out with the lasso pulls in and ends up on top of the ball. And then the other side. Okay. And just lifting the foot. So I sink into one leg, heel especially, and that allows the other one to lift. Just try and get into the habit of really pointing the toes down. And then stepping out, so big toe down. And we want this looping, this circling around the foot and trying to stay in the full leg as long as I can, keeping this heel up until it has to go down. Ooh, now it goes down. As soon as the heel hits the ground, I get sucked into it, and that draws this foot up. Again, trying to point the toes down. So if you have like a cupped palm, sort of relaxed hand, then it sort of is hollow. The palm is hollow. The same feeling with the sole of my foot. So big toe down and then circling. And again, it's this roll in the thigh that gets you in the leg, gets you in the heel, particularly. This sense that the buttock is melting down the back of the leg and into the heel, and enables the heart to stay active and up. So big toe, and now rolling. This is rolling like this. Ooh. And my buttock gets sucked down into the foot. I want this feeling that my upper body is sort of independent of my lower body. I don't want the action of my legs to sort of pull me down like this. So this is always free and open and lifting. And for that, it just has to be very open in the groin and the hips. So one, feel the sacrum. Remember, sacrum is sinking, the sternum is lifting. So pulling the buttock down, pulling the bum in, you get a real sense that your sacrum is just sinking right down the leg. Ooh. And into the heel, and then that will allow this up. So any sense that the heart is dropping or that you're looking down, then it will tend to push your bum back, and then you won't get the heel properly. Good. And now let's try just a bit of this one again, but now feeling the figure of 8 inside the foot. So as the heel comes up, the figure of 8 is rolling around the toes. And as the heel goes down, it's rolling around the heel. So with my left foot, it's going clockwise around the toes, and then it goes anti-clockwise around the heel. So the bottom of the figure of 8 is with your root, with your heel. Top of the figure of 8 is with your spirit and your activity, and the front of your foot. It's obvious, really. So the heel reaches back above the ground, cuts into the ground, and then comes forwards under the ground. And the toes do the opposite. And now let's try the walk with that. So just the stepping really, but just a continuous thing. So sinking into the foot, and then I put the toe down, and now I go around the heel and then around the toes. So now I do a complete figure of 8 rather than a complete circle, and that allows the other foot to come up. Big toe down, and then I go around the heel and around. As I go around the toes, they really reach forwards to clutch at the ground. So there's not a lot of activity we can get in the foot. So we want the activity in the mind and the spirit instead, or as well as. So 1, 2. Going over the figure of 8, underneath the figure of 8 for the heel, and then over the top of the figure of 8, again for the toes. So I do a bit more than a complete figure of 8. So down, under, up, toes clutching. And this is just stepping like a cat, pointing the toe and then putting the heel down and then the rest of the foot and then pulling yourself into the foot. So it's just that, what we always did, pointing the toe, putting the heel down, putting the foot down, then putting the weight into the foot, but with a figure of 8. So 1, 2. Feel the bottom of the figure of 8. So it's this real sense that you're going out to the side like this in order to scoop under the heel. So because the heel is sort of traveling backwards in order to go down, there's a sense that your hand is going behind you. And that's natural. That's always there in the figure of 8. Yeah, so the bottom of the figure 8 goes behind you, the front of the figure 8 comes in front. It was quite intense, this hard work. But we need to really get a feeling that it's there in our energy, in our mind. And then slowly it will creep into the body. Okay, great. Now let's finish. So just bringing it back to riding horse one last time. Go down the spine and ooh, it splits across the sacrum. And then the same with the rising energy up the spine and then splitting here into these two horns. And then feel the internal energy as well. So sense of your aorta. So you've got the heart here, the aorta. It comes up first and then it descends behind the heart. And then at the Dan Chen, it splits into the two femoral arteries, feeding each leg. So that's very much inside the body. And then you've got the energy coming up that branches at the heart and down into each arm. feeling the heels, you're getting sucked into the ground. Gravity is sucking the roots and getting them to extend and grow under the ground. And then I just pull my roots up, come off my heels, and I become the animal, the little scurrying mammal that's constantly looking for food. But the animal is just totally observant. You know, it has to be. Otherwise, it won't eat and it will get eaten. So it just sees everything, smells everything. Imagine if you had a really good sense of smell. The nose is endlessly twitching. And the eyes are really sparkly. And then we give that up. We put the heels down, and suddenly we're sucked into slow time. And we're a tree. A different quality of life, a different order of life. I don't need to move around if I'm a tree. The mind has different problems. The main one simply to remain quiet and attentive. So we need those two minds, the big, slow mind that sees the bigger picture, and the quick, active mind that sees the local with real precision. And we tend to have lost both. So they're both really being replaced by the ego. So the tree mind and the animal mind, they're like two extremes of a sort of frequency spectrum. So what we've done, we've just gathered all our energy and just made this lump in the middle, which is just the slow ego mind that doesn't see anything because it's so self-obsessed. Certainly can't see the bigger picture. And now bringing the feet up, keep that feeling of, if you keep your heels really planted with a sense of them sinking, then that will just prevent you from straightening the legs completely. So my heels, my sacrum getting sucked down, and something is rising up here. So heaven and earth. With a fourfold earth, which includes things, objects that aren't alive, the heavens or the sky, which is really everything that's sort of fluid. Even water, I guess, would be included in that. And then you've got living creatures, things that will die eventually. So our interactions with others, other people and pets, I guess. And then you've got what Heidegger called the divinities, so which is really just your values, your deep values that you live by, your principles, things you die for. So that's the space we're embedded in. And we just need to be really aware of each of those all the time. And the problem is nowadays is the social, which isn't really other people even. That's taken over from all the others. So Nietzsche's project was simply to really look at the values that he'd inherited from his culture and see, are they worthwhile? And he just came to the conclusion that they're all the opposite of what they should be. So that's the sort of project that we need as well, to really look at the values that are imposed upon us by our culture. And certainly bourgeois values are completely topsy-turvy. They're all upside down of what they really should be.